Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with a world-class jeweler, Catherine Best. Catherine, good to see you. Thank you very much for sparing me some time.
Good morning. You're very welcome.
Now, this is sort of desert island discs without the discs, really, I suppose. So, you were born in Guernsey and
Yeah.
brought up in Guernsey. School
Yeah.
days. Tell us a bit about your school days.
School days were, I don't know, they were a bit of a mix, really. Um, I loved them, but my teachers didn't. So I found school very, very tricky, really. I'm a bit of an outdoors person,
Yeah,
and it's a bit bizarre that I'm doing what I do today because I vowed I'd never work in an office,
right.
which in essence is pretty much what I do. But I'm always, I never sit still for very long. So I'm very outdoorsy,
Yeah,
but seems to work, to be honest.
yeah,
Um, I struggled at school. They didn't think I was any good at art, and possibly they were correct. But I think in those days you didn't look at design the same way as you would art.
hmm
And I'm a bit more of a designer, I guess, from the word go. So I used to always interpret my own sort of view on how something should look, which if you technically did an ABC, it didn't work because in their views, I hadn't drawn how they wanted me to draw.
yeah.
So yeah,
So,
a bit telling really if you go back to the beginning, I guess.
but you had did you have ambitions at school to get into design?
No, not at all. I'm not sure what my ambitions were, to be honest. I was always outside riding horses.
Hmm.
My ambition was to enjoy life, to be totally honest.
Not a bad
Uh,
philosophy, actually. So,
well, no, and I did always. I'm not
what
sorry.
school did you go to?
I went to Ladies' College,
Uh-huh.
which is still going here today.
Yeah,
I have to say, I've been back and done talks
yeah,
at that school, and it's changed dramatically from when I was there. I
yeah,
think if I was a student nowadays, I'd probably get on really well. I probably wouldn't have to fight for everything that I did like I did in those days. I'd quite like to go back to school now, to be honest.
well,
It'd be interesting.
dare I say it's not too late? Open university, perhaps, or something
No.
like that. So, how old were you when you left school?
So I left just after what we in those days called O levels.
Yeah,
So I was literally 15.
yeah.
And then I ended up working for my father for a year
Hmm.
because he refused to let me go to college because I was so young. And I was
Yeah,
quite a young 50, to be honest. I was pretty immature if I really think about it. Um, and so I basically stayed here for what was supposed to be a year, but in fact it only ended up being 5 months
yeah,
because I just was absolutely bored silly. I really wanted to be out there doing things and working. So I ended up going to England to a place in Surrey, and I
hmm
ended up being the show jumping jockey for some friends of ours and riding all the horses that they had that needed a jockey on them. So I did that for 6 months before I went to college.
yeah. Okay. And as far as the college is concerned, did it have a definite spin on training for the jewelry business, or how did that work?
Oh no, totally. I mean, I went to a few colleges
Mm.
and I knocked most of them straight on top of the head, whether they were going to accept me or not, if I'm honest, because a few of them were sort of really what I would call playing at making jewelry. It was all about plastics and cotton and
Yeah,
whatever, which was not me. I was always determined. I wanted to go in at the top and do high quality pieces that I'd always be proud of, that I'd want to see, with the crown jewels in 100 years' time, for
yeah,
example.
yeah.
And
So,
that was really the only college that did that. The
yeah.
minute I went, I was just so in awe at the fourth year students and the work they were doing. And I just thought if I could ever make anything like they do, I'll be happy.
Where was the college?
This one was at Medway College of Design,
Yeah.
just on Fort Pitt Hill in Rochester.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it was a bit of a culture shock going from Guernsey to there, but I seem to do okay.
So, having got your qualifications at the college, at what point did you think about starting your own business? I mean, was that immediately after leaving college, or was there a period
It
between?
was before I went to college. Literally, I used to drive my tutors mad because one of the very first pieces that we had to make, they were quite happy if you spent 6 months on it.
Mm.
And I immediately said, there's no way I will be able to run my business taking 6 months making one piece. So I need to do this differently. In fact, they were trying to teach me the skills so that I could then hone in on those skills and become quicker at what I was doing. But I was a little bit impatient, to be totally fair.
Yeah.
But no, I was fixated on running my own business before I even hit college.
Yeah.
So it was always in my head that that's
Yeah.
what I was going to.
So, how far back do you go then in terms of starting the business? What year was that?
It was 1987, the year I left college. So I
Yeah.
literally left college and like came home, probably unpacked my car, and I think the day after that, I was starting to set up my business.
Right. And what about initial premises? Where were you based?
So I started, my dad actually, bless him, we had a windmill in our garden, which we now actually live in, and
Yeah.
our shop is actually in the bottom. But my father, because I'd really worked very, very hard for 4 years to do the best I possibly could in all that I did, as a sort of, congratulations, he got a carpenter in to the very top of the mill because it was all windows the whole way round. He thought it
Mm.
was the perfect light for my
Mm.
workshop.
Mm.
And by the time I came home, I had all these beautiful workbenches all set up for me, that I just needed to adapt and put tools on.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, they were far, far too good, to be honest. he did too good a job, really. And it was lovely, lovely idea, but it actually didn't work because it meant that I was at the top of this ivory tower,
Mm.
and any customers that wanted to come and visit me basically couldn't really. A couple struggled to come and see me 8 floors up, but it just didn't work. So we had to change that after a while.
Yeah. 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 What were you producing initially in terms of jewelry?
Well, I initially started, I mean, my first ever piece was an 18 carat bangle.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, when I started my business, I started with beads. I taught myself how to string and started selling beads because, in actual fact, that's all I could afford to buy.
Yeah.
So I started making necklaces, playing around with color, um, getting clients in, and slowly they would commission me, which then allowed me to move further and further into what I do today.
Yeah. Because I mean, obviously, the cost of the materials is quite prohibitive if you're starting from scratch, one would think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times I nearly gave up.
Yeah.
Uh, I was very close to having an interview in town to work in a bank. I had 3 jobs at the time anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and then, to be honest, what really helped me was my husband turned around one day and said, I really believe in your business. I think you should give everything up,
Yeah.
concentrate on your business, and I'll give you half my wages every week. And that's what started it, really.
That was the start. That was the
Yeah.
catalyst about it. Talking about gold and diamonds at the moment, do you hedge your purchases, or do you just buy them at the price the market dictates at the time you need them? Did you get
No,
that
we buy
one?
them as the
Yeah.
market dictates because, um, especially, I mean, yeah. So we buy the gold as we need it,
Yeah.
and fluctuating so much. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Mm.
As far as stones go, it just depends really. If I'm offered something and I feel I can't resist it,
Yeah.
then I'll move heaven and earth to try and afford it at that time, even if I don't need it.
Yeah.
But with all the small diamonds that we're using, like hundreds a day, we will just buy those as we need them, and we just have a rolling stock of those.
Yeah. 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 Now, interesting about the windmills, because the first one was in Guernsey, as you've already told us. The next one's in Jersey. I mean, there aren't that many windmills around in the Channel Islands, are there? How did you get hold of that?
Sorry, I missed that one.
Yeah, I'm saying that you had the windmill in Guernsey to start off, and then Jersey came up,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
was it difficult to acquire that windmill?
Well, it's a bit of a crazy story, really. So we were looking at premises in Jersey because we'd sort of set up Guernsey, and I don't know, I'm a bit I don't sit still very much, and I was starting to think I needed a new challenge.
Mm.
So we started talking about Jersey, and we had quite a lot of Jersey clients, to be honest, that kept saying, "When are you going to open up in Jersey?" And then my father actually was on a committee in the States, and they were saying that how unfair it was that Jersey people could come and set up over here
Yeah.
with no penalties, come and set up, whereas Guernsey people had to buy existing businesses. So I would have had to buy a jewelry business where none of the stock was relevant to my product, and I wouldn't have been able to afford it anyway.
Mm.
So eventually it went beyond my father. It went to another states grouping, and they actually got it passed that Guernsey people could have a level playing field like the Jersey. And they actually asked us to be their guinea pigs,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing my father had started the ball rolling, funny enough. So we felt we owed it to Dad to go in there and do this. So we started looking at premises, and we really actually wanted to go into town.
Yeah.
And we looked at a beautiful premises, and we were 90% down the road to signing the contract when I just turned around to my husband and I said, you know what, I'm just not comfortable. For one, the landlord was being quite funny because we weren't corporate. And in fact, he sort of got his toes burnt because he took on a corporate who let him down badly a few years later. We're still in Jersey. So I do have a little smile about that one. But so I just suddenly thought, if I've got to really work hard and get the business off the ground, my kids were really quite young, and I
Yeah.
might need to be at work with me. And I didn't want them hanging around St. Helier. So I said to my husband, I actually want to be out of town. So we started to look out of town, and he was flying back, and he happened to open the very small little pamphlet that they used to have, and in it had the windmill in.
Wow.
And he came home that evening and he said, "Oh, what do you think of this?" And I said, "Oh, I know that place."
Yeah.
And the reason I knew that place was because it was the only place big enough with a massive car park that when we were kids and went over to Jersey to compete against them show jumping, our parents used to always go and park in that car park to have a drink and a nice lunch with the horse boxes. So I'd grown up knowing that place, and I just said, "Yeah, I love it." I said, "Brilliant idea," but it wasn't actually for sale.
Right.
Um, so then it's sort of over to my husband. Really, he phoned up the then famous Tom Scott,
Mm-hmm.
who actually owned it at that time, and just said, "Are you interested in selling it?" And he actually turned around and said, "Well, actually, believe it or not, we are thinking that we're going to sell it, because I think for one, it wasn't making them any money, and for two, it needed a lot of renovation."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They were sort of changing how they were running their business over there. So it was just right time, right place, right everything, really.
So did you and your husband suddenly say, "Hey, we've got two windmills. We've got a theme"?
Well, yeah, it was sort of I don't know. It was a bit orchestrated, but it was a bit
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah. Now,
Uh,
one place, Catherine, where you can't have windmills is your shop up in town, at say Elizabeth Street, Belgravia. Um, was that a big leap to get into London? Did you get that one?
yeah, got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, there is the Windmill pub in London.
All right. Okay.
There is there is a
And
Windmill Street.
and the theatre.
Windmill Street, I think you'll find.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no windmills. We did wonder. I mean, not being funny, if money was no object, I'd love to build a windmill in London. I think it'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
But money is an object, and we're in no position to be building a property in London. But having said that, we are in Elizabeth Street now, and we've got the most gorgeous shop.
Mm.
So I'm not too upset that it's not a windmill, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And having just had all this deluge of rain over here, and our windmill leaking like a sieve, I'm actually quite pleased we haven't got another windmill.
But obviously, the jewelry business at your sort of level does rely on actual physical presence, doesn't it? So that shop in Belgravia is an integral part of the operation.
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant. A lot of people have been asking us when we're opening another shop
Mm.
in like Paris. I
Yeah.
have to say, I'm actually in no hurry to do any more. I really want to get London up and running with all the staff in the right place doing the
Yeah.
right thing.
Yeah.
It's days still, so we're out there a lot. Um,
It,
and
it
yeah, I
it's
mean,
all
we've got
about, yeah.
a nation,
Yeah.
so I tend to think I'll leave it all up to them, really.
Yeah, that's their job.
Yeah, I've done enough, I think.
Um, Obviously, when you started, the internet wasn't the sort of marketing medium that it is now. Do you find it a useful way to sell some of the products?
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant. And it's sort of given way for us needing our catalogues like in such a way that we used to. It's lovely when you're chatting to a client on the phone and you can say, just go into our website and tap this into the search bar. I
Yeah.
think you'd really like this piece, or I can design you a piece along these lines, whatever. I use it as a designer a lot. Obviously, we sell directly from it.
Mm.
The other beauty of it is actually, if you consider we've got 3 shops and a lot of our jewelry is one off and unique, then we could have a piece in one shop that someone in London's perhaps not going to see.
Yeah.
But in fact, see it on the website and we can always ship it out. So in that sense, it works very well.
As far as advertising is concerned, the high end of everything um, used to depend a lot on the print media. Do you still have that sort of dependence now, or with the internet has that sort of diminished a bit?
I don't know. We still do quite a lot of print.
Mm.
And it's not me doing the advertising, so it's not coming from my generation. It's quite interesting. It's my daughter doing it, who's early, where she's just about to hit 30.
Yeah.
And I think if you probably asked her that question when she started with our business, she was thinking that she was going to pull away from it more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Where in fact, especially things like the Orany En Voyage magazine,
Yeah.
we're in it as much as we ever were.
Yeah.
We like print. I mean, our product looks good in print, to be honest.
Yeah. 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 And so to that end, it works pretty well. I mean, presumably you've got an advertising budget that is a percentage of turnover, is it, or something like that?
In theory, I'd say
Yeah.
our advertising budget is more than. Our daughter would like it to be higher,
Yeah.
but she needs to get the internet sales so that she can have more of a budget to play with. And that really is what she's working on a lot.
Yeah. Famous film studio person said, I believe, that it's great. I know half of it's effective, the other half isn't. If only I knew which half worked for
Yeah,
advertising. Yeah, but there we are.
you just never You
No,
never know what to think.
but it's keeping the name in front of the public, isn't it?
Yeah, and we do tend to, grill our new clients a bit as to how they found us and
Mm,
why they found us.
mm.
I mean, it's the same old story. You actually cannot beat word of mouth.
No, that's right. Goes a long
But
way, doesn't it? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Um, how many people have you got on board these days then, Kathy, in terms of retail and manufacturing?
Question. Um, well, we're actually recruiting quite a lot at the moment.
Hmm.
There's a real problem in getting makers for one. The colleges aren't really doing what they did when I was at college.
Yeah,
So we don't have that aspect. COVID's actually ruined the last 2 or 3 years because no one's been learning anything. We do our own apprenticeship schemes,
yeah.
which is all well and good, but you need a really good person to teach them. And
Mm,
that good person is the person that makes our best jewelry as well. So we can only take on one apprentice in each workshop
yeah,
because otherwise our jeweler ends up not doing anything other than teaching, which then we wouldn't have a company. Um, so I don't know, as far as people are concerned, it's well over 30
yeah,
between
yeah.
Guernsey and here. And that's split between, there's a lot of admin that goes on that people don't realise. Huge amount, to be honest, because we are manufacturing jewelers. We're not
Yeah.
just buying jewelry in and selling it. So it's not a case of just getting it in, pricing it up and putting it out. We
Yeah.
have to do all the bolts. So we're buying in the stones, the metal, clasps if that's necessary. We do make a lot of clasps, but obviously certain ones you buy in. So yeah, it's a very time consuming business.
Mm.
And then obviously we've got designers. It's not just me designing anymore. So yeah, there's a lot of people to pay wages.
And of course, talking about admin, you've got VAT to contend with for the UK purchases. You've got the Jersey goods and services tax, and possibly one in Guernsey as well. So that in its own right it makes you have to have fairly sophisticated computer systems, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, I think our stock system's more tricky, if I'm
Mm.
honest.
Yeah.
Uh, I think the thing with GST and VAT, yes, we have to do it, but once you're used to it, it's not too big a deal.
No.
It just becomes part of the working week. I mean, thankfully, I have nothing to do with it, so I say that
Yeah.
I'm the wrong person possibly to be asking.
But it works, and you don't cringe too much if the Guernsey politicians get their way and bring in a goods and services tax in Guernsey. I mean, obviously, you don't want to see it, but you've got the ability to actually make it work in terms of your administration and everything.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
straightforward.
Mm, mm. And am I right in thinking that the prices that you show on the internet are have got a VAT element loaded in, and you'll credit that back for anyone living, for example, in the bailiwick?
Well, it's got the VAT in it, but actually, the minute you go to buy it, it comes off anyway. So
Yes,
we
that's
don't need
right.
to
Yeah,
pay
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
budget.
you know what I'm saying is that if anyone goes on the internet and they see something at say 120 quid, effectively, if they're living in the right place, the computer will adjust, and the actual price will be £100.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
totally.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you know, almost like a discount.
Yeah,
Eh,
well, we've got used to it.
yeah, absolutely. Now, how about how do you set trends in your business?
Um, to be honest, the way I've run my business is just how I want to. I
Mm,
always do what I want and what I'm interested in and what I feel works.
yeah,
Um, because yeah, everyone always says, "Oh, this is the trend next year." Well, who's to say that's the trend next year? So I don't know. I don't know where half my ideas come from, but I just have an idea and I go for it,
Yeah.
and it seems to work, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what we do.
Am I right though in thinking that jewelry can be a bit like fashion in terms of some of the manufacturers, are putting out a certain trend and everybody follows it? I mean, obviously you don't, but would that be, fair to say in general terms?
Oh yeah, totally. And they do try to brainwash you into that's what it has to be.
Yeah.
But um I think we're a bit luckier nowadays, because if you even look at fashion, clothing fashion, everything actually goes nowadays.
Mm,
It's not quite as strict as it used to be.
mm.
I mean, obviously, there's a reason they want to change the fashion every year, is so that you have to buy new clothes. So
Quite,
that,
yeah.
I mean, if you spent, I don't know, £500, £1,000, £10,000 on a piece of jewelry, you're not going to want to bin that every year.
No, no.
So,
So,
my philosophy is that a piece is for life, and it needs to be classical enough that it will be in trend every single year that
yeah,
you want to wear, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. And you've gone into themes as well, haven't you? I mean, I think you've done some stuff on African, the big five, African animals and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm animal mad, so that just naturally follows.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
I always like to do something that makes you smile.
yeah.
So, like when we went into the puffins, I just wanted a cheeky little puffin that the minute you looked at it, you smiled no matter what you thought. Um, and that's sort of a bit how I design, I guess.
Mm.
But as far as the big animals go, that was a bit of the influence I got from Born Free.
Yes. Okay.
A lot of work with Joanna Lumley and Jenny Seagrove,
Hmm.
and so naturally I got into working with them, and I did quite a bit of fundraising with them.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, it just sort of followed, and I mean they're beautiful anyway, so why wouldn't you?
Now, what about limited editions? Do you find that with some of your products, you're sort of working on the basis that perhaps you'll make 100 or 500 and that'll be it? Or
Yeah, we do 500. We've got a couple of classical lines that will just run forever,
hmm
just because they're classical, and I would never want to try and redesign that, because I feel that I've got the best design possible for that anyway. Um, and then as far as the limited editions go, I mean, normally we'll do 250.
Yeah.
So unlimited editions run very small, but partly that's because we've got certain clients that want to buy the next new limited edition that's coming out. And if we don't limit it to that, our limited editions would run for too long anyway.
Yeah.
Some actually run out within months, like one of the puffins did actually.
Mm.
But it just depends on where it is. So obviously, if you consider the COVID years, we didn't
Yeah.
have no one coming in. So our limited editions might have lasted a bit longer for those times.
So effectively, some of the clients are collectors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. A lot
Mm.
of are,
Yeah.
but they're not collectors that put it in a box. They're collectors that like to wear their jewelry and
Yeah.
change
Sure.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
regularly. So they change it like they change their clothes,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
it should be really.
You've won a lot of awards over the years. Is there any one particular one that stands out?
There's possibly two actually. So the one that I was possibly the most proud of was the BTEC National Medal,
Hmm.
partly because I'm the only jeweler ever to have won it, and even better, I'm the only jeweler that will ever win it, because they no longer do it. So I can claim that one, which is great.
That's an
Uh,
exclusive. Yeah.
yeah, but
What about
that
what about the other one?
the other one's the Goldsmiths Design Award, which, funny enough, I'm wearing today.
Yeah.
Was um, the design category at Goldsmiths in 1987. So the year I left college actually.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. And taking it a stage further, you're now on the judging panel of the Goldsmith Company Awards, aren't you?
Well, I'm not actually these last couple of years because COVID made it
Yeah.
just too difficult to go and do it.
Mm.
But I have been,
Yeah.
and it's a lovely thing to do. In fact, we still sponsor the awards to a little degree,
Hmm.
and I'd like to think we'd always do that.
Yeah.
But and I always try to go to the awards ceremony, but unfortunately, I've not been able to go the last couple of years. But yeah, it's a great competition, and it's a great way for people to actually really concentrate and come up with some fabulous designs. Because it
Mm.
just, I always found with competitions, it pushed me further than I might push myself on a daily basis.
Yeah. So from that point of view, it was enjoyable and hopefully profitable as well.
Well,
So
yeah, and it forced me into having designs.
yeah. Um, let's talk about the family a little bit because it is a family business, isn't it? Your husband's involved, your daughter is are involved, and essentially, you're creating a situation where it's going to go on a generational basis. So that's good news. You still there? Yeah. Can you hear me, Kathy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
I was saying about the
I've sort
family.
of got the gist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're very lucky because if we didn't have the family involved, I think Paul and I would have to start thinking about what we're going to be doing
Mm.
going forward,
Yeah.
because we wanted to keep expanding the business, where obviously that wouldn't have been practical had we not had a strategy going forward. Um, so our daughter Vicky actually trained at the same college as me, so she can make, and she's predominantly a designer now, but she does manage the business and the people. Um, so we've got her. So she started with us 10 years ago now,
Hmm.
which is frightening. Our other daughter, Penelope, came back and started working in the PR and marketing. And she again is very artistic, but just she doesn't actually design jewelry, she does her own painting.
Yeah.
She loves doing the all the advertising and everything and does a great job of that, and is in charge of the internet. My husband obviously has the horrible job. He does all the finances. Um, and then my brother-in-law also is involved. He does a lot of the jewelry valuations, and he switches between jewelry valuations, maintenance, and he's now working quite a bit on the farm with me because I
Right.
do have a little farm.
Yeah.
And then my son-in-law actually joined us a couple of weeks ago.
Well, there you
He's
are.
trained accountant, so he's going to learn the business from the ground up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're pretty secure.
Just a quick one. What point did the business become a brand? Can you actually identify a time, or just was it a process of evolution?
I'd say it was a process of evolution, but I think it took a big jump when our younger daughter joined us.
Mm, mm, yeah.
Just because she had worked with people like Big Sky Studios.
Yeah.
So I think it was sort of, she'd been working in London and she'd sort of been in that world a bit.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of her friends that she was working with were sort of saying, your mum's jewelry business is a brand.
Yeah.
So it was sort of in the back of her head. So she's been driving it forward in that way.
Yeah. It's quite an accolade, isn't it? Can I close off by saying how helpful the staff are? I'll give you an example. I got something from my wife, and I got a phone call back a few minutes later and said, Mr. LeBlanc, did you realize you purchased the same earrings last Christmas? And I thought that was brilliant. I really did. You've got a fairly good record of what the customers have purchased over the years, Catherine.
Yeah, no, that's where the business really does work. Because you
Yeah,
can phone up and say, look, I don't know what to get her. Can you help? And we can
yeah,
say, look, you've bought this, this, and this. And she obviously loved it. Uh, we've then got a bit of a demographic of
Yeah.
who she is and what
Yeah.
she likes and what will work for her.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can do all the hard work for you. You just got to pay.
Catherine, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sparing me some time. I've really enjoyed our chat today, and wish you all the best and the family all the best for the future.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay.